and upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. And this we beg in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is the oath of allegiance, and I call Ms. Lindsay, Senator Lindsay Simmons, to take the oath.
I, Lindsay Kathleen Simmons, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to the law, so help me God.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. Welcome back to the Senate. Item number 2, confirmation of minutes. I'll call on Vice President Kieran Bell.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the minutes of the 18th of March 2024, the minutes of the 20th of March 2024, and the minutes of the 21st of March 2024 be confirmed.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the minutes of the 18th March 2024, 20th of March 2024, 21st of March 2024 be adopted.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the minutes? No objection. The minutes are adopted. Thank you, Vice President Kieran Bell. Item number 3, messages. Mrs. Beal?
There are no messages, Madam President.
Thank you. Item number 4, reports of committees. There are none. Item number 5, announcements. There are none. Item number 6, notices of motion. There are none. Item number 7, petitions. There are none. Item number 8, statements. Senators, we have 2 statements this morning, and they're both in the name of the Honorable Owen Darrell, Minister of Tourism. The first one, Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sports.
Madam President, good morning.
Good morning.
Madam President, the title of my ministerial statement this morning is The Energy of Bermuda Day. Madam President, I'm pleased to rise today to reflect on the incredible experience that was the 2024 Bermuda Day Parade. This year's event was truly a celebration of culture, resilience, and our community spirit, all set against the backdrop of a picture-perfect weather. What a stark and delightful contrast to last year, when record-breaking rainfall tried to dampen our festivities, but not our spirits. Madam President, this year, the sun was shining brightly upon us, providing the perfect setting for a parade that was nothing short of spectacular. The turnout was phenomenal, with this year's parade boasting a record number of participants, filling our streets with unprecedented levels of enthusiasm and creativity. The heart and soul of Bermuda was on full display, with each participant bringing their unique flair to our celebration. Madam President, adding to the incredible energy of the day were spirited performances by a number of majorette groups, including the ex-artillery majorettes, the Hamilton Parish Hot Peppers, and the Dynamic City Rockettes. Their high-stepping marches and infectious enthusiasm brought smiles to the faces all along the parade route. The return of the Association of Filipinos in Bermuda to the parade was marked by vibrant costumes, while the PHC Majorette and Drum Corps captivated the crowds with their precision and flair, each step perfectly timed to the beat of the drum. Madam President, the floats this year was a visual feast, showcasing the creativity and hard work of our community. from the charming boxcart floats designed by our talented primary schools to the grand, elaborately decorated floats by various charities and culture groups. Each entry told a unique story. Floats by Cedar Bridge Academy, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Bermuda Alumni Chapter, and our very own Department of Culture, designed and executed by the Chustick Foundation. Vasco da Gama Club, One Body in Christ Movement for God's Purpose were also particularly impressive. It was a stunning representation of our island's rich cultural heritage and a testament to the artistic talent within our community. Madam President, one of the most inspiring stories of the day came from Cedar Bridge Academy. Their award-winning float faced an unexpected challenge when the truck carrying it broke down. However, in a true display of Bermudian resilience, they managed to weld the broken part and continue their journey. This act of determination was a powerful reminder of our community's ability to overcome obstacles and keep moving forward. Madam President, while there were many stories of triumph, it's unfortunate there were also moments of disappointment. The Bermuda Gymnastics Association's truck was involved in a road traffic accident shortly before their scheduled arrival at the parade, preventing them from participating. Their absence was felt, but their dedication and spirit were acknowledged and appreciated by all. Madam President, a crucial factor in this year's successful turnout of the Bermuda was the Bermuda Day Fund, funded primarily by the government of Bermuda. This initiative enabled 26 of the 66 entries to receive financial support, offsetting costs and allowing for more robust participation from a diverse array of community groups. This fund, Madam President, played an essential role in ensuring that the parade was inclusive and representative of the entire community. Madam President, celebrating Bermudian excellence was the highlight of this year's parade, with the acknowledgement of our distinguished Grand Marshals, Mr. Brian Wellman, Mr. Danny O'Connor, Ms. Liz Pimentel, Dr. Kaiwan Brown, and the late Judith Simons. Each of these individuals made significant contributions to our island in various fields, such as, and no surprise, the sports, the arts, tourism, and community service. Their achievements and dedication were rightfully honored, serving as an inspiration to all. Madam President, adding a touch of quirky ingenuity to the parade was Alexander Winfield, a Bermudian puppeteer who returned to the island specifically to take part in this parade. His creation, which was called the Trash Gobbler, was a delightful addition that captured imagination of both the young and old. If I can pause, Madam President, to see him get in and out of that costume was just something special. This whimsical entry showcased the creative spirit that thrives in Bermuda and added an element of fun and innovation to the festivities. Madam President, the parade concluded in the traditional fashion with electrifying performances by our beloved Gumbies. The energy that they brought to the streets, the rhythm of their beats, the colorful regalia were a vivid reminder of our rich cultural heritage. A standout moment was the tribute by H&H Gumbies, who wore black as part of their traditional regalia in honor of their founding members and all of their past members who have passed away. This heartfelt tribute was a touching blend of tradition and personal remembrance, resonating deeply with all who witnessed it. Madam President, as we reflect on this year's parade, we do so with immense pride and gratitude. The 2024 Bermuda Day Parade was a magnificent display of Bermudian culture and heritage. From the performances, to the floats, to the stories of resilience, and the celebration of our community's excellence. The participants truly showed us their energy. Madam President, none of this would be possible without the efforts of the team at the Department of Culture, led by Dr. Kim Dismont Robinson, the director, and particularly the efforts of Cultural Program Manager, Ms. Carlita Lodge, who organizes the parade. Ms. Lodge's dedication, attention to detail, and countless sleepless nights in the lead up to the parade ensured that every aspect, both large and small, was planned and executed. Her hard work and passion were evident in the spectacular success of the event. Madam President, this year's parade set a high standard. And as we look forward to next year, we do so with the confidence that we build on the strength of this year's fantastic showing. The vibrant energy, the creativity, the community spirit that we witnessed are a testament to the enduring strength of our unity of our island. Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you to everyone who supported. And thank you to everyone who celebrated. Together, we have made this day one to remember. And here's to the continued celebration of our vibrant culture and spirit of Bermuda. We eagerly anticipate next year's parade, where we will undoubtedly surpass the brilliance of this year and continue to showcase the best of what Bermuda has to offer. Let's all cherish the memories of this remarkable day as we look forward to an even brighter and more spectacular Bermuda Day parade in 2025. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Darrell. You have a second statement, and you can proceed with that when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the topic of this ministerial statement is to inform about the scholarship awards to junior and elite athletes. Madam President, the Department of Sport and Recreation is committed to enhancing sporting excellence at all levels and recognizes that our athletes must be supported to ensure their growth and development. The National Junior Sponsorship Program and the Elite Athlete Sponsorships are two programs that support this government's commitment. Madam President, the goal of the National Junior Sponsorship is to provide encouragement and development opportunities to Bermudian junior athletes between the ages of 15 and 19 who clearly show commitment, promise, and achievement in their respected sport. The Elite Athlete Sponsorship aims to assist elite Bermudian athletes by providing funding to support them in reaching elite standards and representing Bermuda at major international events. These athletes also must clearly show commitment, promise, and achievement in their respective sport. Madam President, this year I'm proud to announce that just under $246,000 was awarded to our promising junior athletes and dedicated athletes at the recent ceremony held on the 22nd of May at the Hamilton Princess Beach Club in the Harbor View Ballroom. The awards were presented to the athletes by myself, as well as guest speaker, Mr. Gavin Manders, who's an international tennis and pickleball professional and director of Manders Tennis Management, along with the director, Ms. Kay Sharice Bean of the Department of Sport and Recreation. 24 elite athletes, 11 junior athletes, and 6 coaches received funding during this recent Athlete Sponsorship Program award ceremony. Madam President, this year, funding of just over $59,000 was presented to junior athletes and coaches. Additionally, the Flora Duffy Award will provide $10,000 in financial support to 2 Bermudians towards their sports endeavors for a 3rd year. Our 2024 National Junior Sponsorship awardees are as follows. Robin Seeley from the sport of archery received $3,081. Elijah Daly from the sport of swimming received $3,192. Cameron Baisden from the sport of basketball received $2,670. Isaiah Devine from the sport of motorcycle racing received $3,500. Jake Smith from the sport of athletics received $2,022. Tyler James from the sport of equestrian received $4,625. Aiden Simmons from the sport of motocross received $1,995. Samir Tavares Place from the sport of rugby received $2,153. Miguel Power from the sport of sailing received $2,176. Ezai Johnson from the sport of Sanshao received $2,223. And Haley Trott from the sport of volleyball received $2,667. Madam President, some of our sporting bodies decided that it would be better to bring in coaches to the island so that numerous junior athletes could benefit from the funding. The Bermuda Bicycle Association, the Bermuda Cricket Board, the Bermuda Hockey Federation, the Bermuda Football Association, the Bermuda Triathlon Association, and the Pickleball Association of Bermuda were all recipients of funding for coaches totaling $19,329. Madam President, in honor of our Dame Flora Duffy, we presented two awardees with funding in her honor. This award is for promising athletes who are likely to achieve elite athlete status at the senior level, given their continued participation and commitment to their sport. This year, we were proud to award Aiden Kendall from the sport of rugby and Sam Williamson from the sport of swimming with the Flora Duffy Award. Madam President, the Department of Sport and Recreation has significantly increased funding for the Elite Athlete Sponsorship Program. Madam President, the Department of Sport and Recreation has significantly increased funding for Elite Athlete Sponsorship from $87,000 in 2023 to just under $188,000. Madam President, if I can repeat that line one more time. The Elite Athlete Sponsorship was increased from $87,000 in 2023 to just under $188,000 this fiscal year. This demonstrates the government's commitment to building a pathway to excellence for any athlete seeking to pursue sport on a professional level. Our 2024 awardees for the Elite Athlete Sponsorships are Adriana Panderbrook, sailing, awarded $15,000. Isaiah Devine, motorcycle racing, awarded $5,000. Caitlin Bob, athletics, awarded $5,000. Cameron Pickering in archery, awarded $8,000. Connor White, bicycling, awarded $15,000. Dage Miners, athletics, awarded $6,000. Daniel Phillips in tennis, awarded $8,000. Krista Dyer of Sanshao, awarded $5,000. Erica Howley, triathlon, awarded $10,000. Gabriella Arnold in bicycling, awarded $7,000. Jack Harvey, swimming, awarded $5,000. Emma Harvey, swimming, awarded $8,000. Jaden Roberts of archery, awarded $3,500. Nicholas Narroway, bicycling, awarded $8,500. Jessica Lewis, the athlete of the year, Madam President, of Paralympics, awarded $15,000. Robert Horsfield, bicycling, awarded $2,000. Caden Hopkins of bicycling, awarded $7,000. Sebastian Kemp, sailing, awarded $10,000. Kaylin Cox of Sanshao, awarded $5,000. Tariq Simons, tennis, awarded $5,000. Tyler Smith, triathlon, awarded $9,500. Janico Francis of rugby awarded $5,000. Uche De Silva Andrade of bocce awarded $10,000. Campbell Patton Sailing awarded $10,000. And Daniel Augustus awarded $7,500. Golf. Madam President, goal number 2 of the national sports policy is achieving sporting excellence regionally. We speak to increased government funding for high performance athletes and teams in this goal. I'm pleased to say, Madam President, that this goal has been achieved. Madam President, the increasing numbers of athletes participating internationally bodes well for sports in Bermuda as we thrive to achieve sporting excellence. The Department of Sport and Recreation will continue to provide a transparent process for athletes to access funding based on the principles of accountability, equity, and outcome focus. Accordingly, the government's deep commitment to sport will continue with these programs and others to show that sport matters. Madam President, before I conclude, it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge our newly qualified athletes for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games in Paris. Congratulations to Erica Howley, Flora Duffy, and Tyler Smith from the sport of triathlon, who are the latest athletes to qualify, and I believe also Jack Harvey from swimming. They will join Adriana Panderbrook in sailing, Dara Azdia in rowing, representing Bermuda at the Games. There is still time for others to qualify, and we wish them all the best to those who are striving. Along with the entire country, I will be cheering the athletes on as they represent Bermuda with pride this summer. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Darrell. Moving on with our orders of the day. Item number 9, introduction of bills. There are none. Item number 10, the first reading of public bills. There are none. Sorry. Made a mistake there. Sorry, Senators. The following public bills have been received from the Honorable House of Assembly and are now read for the first time. Their titles are respectively the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024, the Registration of Births and Deaths Amendment Act 2024, Computer Misuse Act 2024. And Senators, these bills will be taken up on our orders of the day later in the meeting. Item number 11, the first reading of private bills. There are none. Item number 12, question and question periods. Senators, yeah, okay, I'll do these. I'll do the statements. Senators, we will entertain the questions on the statements that have just been delivered, and the first one was delivered by Minister Darrow, and that is Energy of Bermuda. Would any senator care to speak on the statement?
No questions on the statement.
It was so well delivered.
tell
and-
you. Good
and
news.
it's very good news. Senators, we will
I
also
thought
entertain.
Senator Decuda would have had some questions. No?
Moving on to your second statement, Minister Darrell, and that is on the sponsorship awards to junior and elite athletes. Would any senator care to speak on that? Senator Tucker, Leader of the Opposition, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the Minister for bringing the statement to us this morning. My question really is more about getting a little bit, just a tiny bit of clarification. So on page 2 of the statement, the second paragraph from the top, the statement makes mention of a $10,000 award for Flora, the $10,000 Flora Duffy Award being provided. And then on page 3, the second paragraph, it makes mention of an award being made in honor of Dame Duffy, and that was presented to 2 awardees. So I'm just looking for clarification as to whether that's the same. It was the same $10,000 that was mentioned in the earlier part of the statement. And also, there were 2 people mentioned as being awardees on this in this second paragraph of page 3. So I'm just wondering if Mr. Williamson and I believe this is Mr. Kendall, if they both got equal amounts or was the award split? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tucker. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this second statement? Hearing none, then it's over to you, Minister Darrow.
Thank you, Madam President. Just waiting on just the response, so I have it actually. It's the same award, and I'm just letting you know in a moment whether it was 10,000 each or if it was 5,000 each. Here, 1 second. They shared the award, so it was 5,000 for each. Thank you, Madam
Thank
President.
you. Thank you, Minister Darrow. And that was the only question on your second statement. So we'll move on then with the questions that required oral responses to parliamentary questions for today. And and these questions are put to Senator Robinson. Sorry, I beg your pardon. The questions are put to Senator Darrow to provide oral responses to the parliamentary questions from Senator Robinson. The first one, would the Honorable Minister please inform the Senate as to the total amount spent and list individual expenses to account for the total funds spent to conduct the initial primary school scoring process and the rescoring process? Mr. Darrow.
Thank you, Madam President. For the initial scoring conducted by the school location strategy team, there were no funds spent for the initial primary school scoring process. The assessment were completed by public officers during the course of their normal working hours. For the rescoring process, Madam President, the total amount spent was $15,000. This amount was paid to the History and Legacy Working Group, 6 members at $2,500 per member, to determine and propose study factors for the rescoring process for the Minister of Education's consideration. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister. And the second question was, would the Honorable Minister please inform the Senate as to when the principals and parents of St. David's Primary, Somerset Primary, and West End Primary were notified of the final rescoring outcome?
Thank you, Madam President. The principals of St. David's Primary School, Somerset Primary School, and West End Primary School were notified of the final rescoring outcome by a letter sent via email from the Department of Education to all school principals on May 1st, 2024 at 1:54 p.m. A press conference to announce the decision was held at 2 p.m. the same day at St. David's Primary, and the story was aired on multiple media outlets after the press conference. The parents were notified on May 2nd, 2024, just after 8 a.m. via a letter posted on the Department of Education's Schoology platform, which is the established method for the Department of Education to communicate to parents and guardians. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Darrow. We'll move on to, I beg your pardon, there's would any other senator care to speak to ask any questions? Senator Tucker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a question concerning the minister's response on question 2. I appreciate that notification was sent on May 1st by email, a letter by email. I'm just wondering if the minister can tell us if any detail was provided to the principals of these schools, especially particularly the ones that were successful to remain open, such as West End, whether there was any criteria that confirmed to them where all the schools had placed in the rescoring process. Thank you, Madam President.
Minister Darrow.
Madam President, with respect, I'm not sure the senator understands the question that she's trying to ask. I'm at a loss for words as to what she wants answered. It very clearly stated that a letter was sent. If she wants to see the letter, we can produce that at a later time. But if she wishes to re-ask the question in a clearer fashion, I will attempt to answer it
Senator
in a clearer
Tucker,
fashion.
would you like to clarify your question?
Yes, please. I'm not quite sure how much clearer I can make it, because what I'm asking, this is a rescoring process. And so therefore, what I'm asking is whether the schools such as West End Primary was first advised that they would be closing. And then after the rescoring process, they were told that they were going to remain open. So when they were notified that of the outcome, when all of the schools were notified of the outcome of the rescoring process, I would like to know if there was criteria included in that letter, or were they just simply told that West End is successful, Somerset Primary now is not. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tucker. Minister.
The answer is yes.
Thank you, Madam President. If the minister can just explain what yes means in response to the question I asked, I'd be grateful for the clarification.
Madam President, yes, details were given in the letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tucker, this is a supplementary. I mean, you've asked two questions on it already.
Yes, this is a supplementary. So can the minister tell us whether in those details the schools were provided with the specific scores, and how that related to the decision that was made to either close the school or keep it open? Thank you, Madam President.
Yes, Madam President, the criteria was included.
Thank you, Minister. Senator DeCuto, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to have a follow-up question on that. The minister stated that the criteria was included. Were the detailed results of the scores according to each criteria included in the communications to the principals and the parents? Thank you, Madam President.
Minister, the question is whether
Was that the same
criteria-
question that was asked twice already? I'm seeking some
Senator
clarity.
DeCuto, would you clarify your question and repeat it, please, so that the
Thank
minister
you,
can
Madam President.
understand?
The minister stated that the criteria were included, but of course you could interpret that as saying the actual scores that went along, that the resulting scores that went along with each criteria may not have been included. So I would like to confirm if the detailed scores for each of the criteria, aka the results that were then used for the decision at a granular detailed level, according to each criteria, the results of each criteria were also provided along with the list of the criteria. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. As I am receiving the answer for that, I will give it to the Senate in 1 second. Madam President, the final report is being produced and will be published shortly.
Thank you, Minister. Senators, that Minister has indicated that he will provide the response, the answer to that question shortly when he gets it. And
No, no, Madam President. I said the final report
The
is
final
being
report.
produced and will be published shortly.
Senator DeCuto,
Thank you, Madam President. So to clarify, would it be correct to say that the answer to the question of where the detailed results according to each criteria provided to the schools and teachers, the answer to that would be
in the
no?
report.
The answers will be in the report, which will be produced shortly.
Sorry, Madam President, my question was not about the report. I
I
would
think
just like to
he's on
confirm.
question number 6 now, Madam President.
Senator DeCuto, the minister's response is that the answer will be in the report. And we'll
Thank you, Madam
assume that
President.
that is. Senators, that ends the question period. We will now continue. Oh, I beg your pardon. We'll move on to, there are questions that were put toward Senator Ariana Hudson, the Junior Minister of Health, and that was all, they were put by Senator Tucker, opposition leader in the Senate. The first question is, would the junior minister please provide the Senate with an update on progress made since 2023 to improve the National Health Accounts reports process that is needed to bring about a greater understanding of the spending that takes place in our healthcare system? Senator Hudson, over to you for a response to that question. There's a requirement for oral response today.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So I'd like to say that the Bermuda government has actually implemented several key improvements to the National Health Accounts reports process in hopes of, I guess, enhancing transparency as well as accuracy in tracking healthcare expenditures. I do note that the Health Council is currently reporting $780 million as the defined estimate of total annual health expenditure as of the end of fiscal year 23, per the calculations, which were part of a recent project in partnership or in relation to, UHC. And again, this is up from 736 million, which was published in the most recent released National Health Accounts report.
That's the first question.
Yes.
The second question, would the junior minister please inform the Senate as to when National Health Accounts reports were completed for fiscal year 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021, and the planned date for release to the public?
I can report that the NHA reports for fiscal year 20 and 21 have not been finalized to date, as data tables are still being completed at this time.
Thank you. And the third question, would the junior minister please inform the Senate as to whether the National Health Accounts reports for fiscal year 2021, 2022, 22 to 23 are complete, and what is the planned date for release to the public?
Madam President, the full data sets that are available for fiscal year 22 and 23 are actually being analyzed at this time. I do believe that the Health Council anticipates up-to-date reports being published by the end of the third quarter, and so that those details are forthcoming. I would also like to add, that we are fully aware of the importance of the National Health Account outputs in terms of the broader discussion of the value and the cost effectiveness of our health system. And so we are aware of how the lack of data can, halt and seriously compromise the efforts being made. That would be my response.
Senator Tucker?
Thank you to the junior minister for answering those questions. I have a couple of questions on that point. So on question one, um, while I appreciate that, she did mention that some progress has been made, I'd just be interested to know if she can give a little bit more sort of color to the specific, progress that is being made. And the reason that I asked that is because last year she did mention that, that internal and external stakeholders were being worked with to progress the national health accounts reports processes. So that's why I'm asking for the clarification as to what what types of high level initiatives have been implemented to improve that process. Second question would be what is the time frame? And this is in response to question number two. I appreciate that the minister said that the reports haven't been finalized yet, the reports for 2019, 2020, and 2021. But if she can give some time frame as to when the accounts might be made available to the public, and as well as similar for question number three, because she said they'd be updated by the end of the third quarter. And why that's important, because the junior minister did express, again, in agreement that the reports are critically important. Um, but we haven't had a published report since 2019. And so I'm curious as to where's the information and why there's such a delay. So if she can provide some information, that'll be great. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, Senator Tucker had asked questions about, I guess, providing some color around the progress being made. So I do want to indicate that some of these improvements actually include the integration of advanced data analytics tools, which is streamlining data collection and analysis. We've also established a dedicated task force to actually oversee this reporting process. And generally speaking, we are looking at increasing the ways to enhance collaboration with both private and public health stakeholders. I would say that additionally, we have made efforts to standardize reporting metrics and methodologies to ensure consistency and comparability across different fiscal years. All of this with an aim to provide a more comprehensive understanding of healthcare spending and to facilitate data-driven policy decisions. Uh, there was a question in terms of the time frame, and I did speak to third quarter, but I'm going to get just a bit more flavor to satisfy that question.
Thank you. And Senator Tucker, you have an additional question?
Um, yes, Madam President. If the junior minister can also just answer why we don't have a published report since 2019. That's an important question, particularly because these reports actually detail the total health system expenditure for each year. So they are as far as I understand it, supposed to be annually reported. But as I said, we haven't had one since 2019. And if you look at the Health Council's website, the 2020 report is only 50% complete. So I'd appreciate just an update on why. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Senator Tucker.
Madam President, I can speak to that question. I would say that the delay, in developing the past few health accounts in a consistent format to previous reports are a result of more recent and more prominent non-compliance, actually, as it relates to data submission. Of course, we do leverage audited financials for some stakeholders, but the timing of those financials vary widely depending on the audits. I can also add that in many instances, the Health Council has looked to use various workarounds. One of those would be, doing calculations in terms of using the raw transaction level data. But they have been aware of the lack of consistency in the data submitted, which of course doesn't allow us to create the same sets of data tables that have been used by the Health Council. And so there are a number of anomalies which have led to the place we find ourselves in now.
Thank you, Senator Hudson. Senator DeCuto.
Thank you, Madam President. The question is the Health Council receiving the data from the hospital with the requisite granularity and detail to compile the reports? I know that since the block grant was
Senator DeCuto, I'm not sure that question is relevant to the questions that has been put to the junior minister.
Oh, thank you, Madam President. It was a question as if that is a contribution to the delays in the reports, Madam President. That was my angle. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Hudson, did you want to speak to the issue of delays in the report?
Before going down that rabbit hole, Madam President, I did want to follow up to Senator Tucker's question about the timing of reports. And so the National Health Accounts reports for fiscal years.
I can hardly hear you. Can you speak up with your volume? Thank you.
And so the reports for fiscal years 2019, 2020, as well as 2020, 2021 have been completed. The report for the fiscal year 2019-2020 was completed at the end of 2021. However, the report for fiscal year 2020-2021 was actually finalized, I believe, early in 2023, I believe March. Both reports are scheduled for public release shortly. But of course, we're going through the final reviews and approval processes to ensure the accuracy and comprehensiveness of the data that has been presented. And I spoke to it, I guess, a bit earlier. I don't want to speak on the hospital itself, but generally speaking, we are continuing to work to update the methodology based on what data we can actually guarantee or, in hopes of receiving that data. And we'll use the same process on an aggregated report that will allow us to catch up to 2023 and would include the information that we've learned through the UHC exercises that have taken place.
Thank you, Senator Hudson, and thank you, senators, for your response to the oral questions that were posed for answers today. You want to change the order? Just a minute. So you,
So I just get it backwards.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So this one will be last. Senators, I've just been advised by Minister Darrow that the order of the debate on the there is a change in the order. So at this time, we will undertake the second reading of the Computer Misuse Act 2024, and that is in the name of Senator Reverend Dr. Emily Dill, the Junior Minister for National Security. So that will be first. The second one will be the Registration of Births and Deaths Amendment Act 2024, and the third order of the day will be the second reading of the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024. So we will change the order in which they will be presented. Therefore, at this time, we will entertain the second reading of the Computer Misuse Act 2024, and that's in the name of Senator Reverend Dr. Emily Dill, Junior Minister for National Security.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the provisions of Standing Order Number 25 be granted so that the Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the bill entitled the Computer Misuse Act 2024.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. Carry on, Senator Dill.
Also, the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024 and the Registration of Birth and Death Amendment Act 2024. Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Dill. You will proceed with the presenting the Computer Misuse Act.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Computer Misuse Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. Carry on.
Thank you. Madam President, the bill before the Senate today is the Computer Misuse Act 2024. This bill repeals and replaces the Computer Misuse Act 1996. The bill is the first in a series of legislation that will be amended to update Bermuda's laws on cybercrime. Madam President, I would like to give senators the benefit of an explanation of the difference between cybercrime and cybersecurity legislation. The Cybersecurity Act focuses on preparedness for and protections against cyber threats. The bill being presented now, the Computer Misuse Act 2024, is focused on creating offenses of crimes committed using a computer or acts that involve unauthorized access to a computer or computer system, whether or not that access also involves impairing the operation of the computer or computer system. This bill gives the police power to investigate and make arrests in relation to these offenses and provides the parameters within which the Department of Public Prosecutions can initiate legal proceedings against a suspect. Madam President, the analogy of going for a Sunday afternoon drive might help explain the difference. When we get into our cars, we put on our seatbelts and make sure our children are safely secured in the rear seats. We ensure that the windshield wipers and indicators are working optimally. We ensure our brakes are working well and we lock our car doors. Doing these things helps us ensure that our car and its passengers are safe. This preparation and protection can be likened to cybersecurity. Madam President, in this analogy, cybercrime may be compared to the illegal use of a vehicle, such as auto theft, driving over the speed limit, parking in a no parking zone, or driving while under the influences of drugs or alcohol. These are criminal acts. Thankfully, we protected ourselves, so we are unharmed. But these individuals must be dealt with and reprimanded for their crimes. That is what the cybercrime legislation will do. It will provide the police and the Department of Public Prosecutions with the powers needed to investigate and prosecute a cyber attack and other crimes committed using a computer. Madam President, the bill today specifically creates offenses against unauthorized access to computer material, unauthorized access to a computer with the intent to commit further offenses or the intent to impair the operation of a computer, and any act in relation to a computer that creates the risk of serious damage or actually causes serious damage. The bill also clarifies issues surrounding jurisdiction when a cybercrime is committed. It strengthens Bermuda's international cooperation and ensures that cyber criminals can be investigated, arrested, and convicted no matter where the crime is committed. Madam President, the offenses created under this bill are serious. We have witnessed the damage that can be done by those commonly referred to as bad actors when technology is used for malicious purposes. As such, these offenses each attract considerable tariffs, ranging from imprisonment terms of 6 months and fines of $18,000 to life imprisonment terms and fines up to $1 million for offenses that create the most risk of harm or actual harm. Madam President, the provisions of this bill are in line with the Council of Europe Convention on Cybercrime, signed in Budapest on the 23rd of November 2001. The Budapest Convention is an international treaty that addresses internet and computer crimes by harmonizing national laws, improving investigative techniques, and increasing cooperation among nations. Bermuda is not a signatory to the Budapest Convention. However, this bill and the amendments to the Electronic Communications Act, the Criminal Code, and other local legislation will position Bermuda as a country utilizing best practice in cybercrime legislation. Madam President, I am pleased to commend this bill to the Senate for debate.
Thank you, Senator Dill. And before I open the floor to senators to respond, I would just like to acknowledge the presence in the gallery of Lieutenant Colonel Mr. Edward Lamb, the Permanent Secretary for National Security. Welcome to you. Would any senator care to speak on this bill? Senator DeCuto, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you to the senator for the presentation. I was thankful also for the analogy that she used, because I think, up until recently, well, maybe I'm too old to be saying recently, but people would have thought as computer crime as victimless. I looked this original bill, the original version of this bill was around in 1996 and was actually only last amended 9 years ago. So it's easy for us to understand that perhaps things have moved on since this bill was created. And I did do a little research about, who in Bermuda has been convicted of these sorts of crimes. I found references to two people who have gone before the courts, and my understanding of their offenses was what I would term as stealing internet access, and they were young men. Let's leave it at that. And so people say, oh, these kids just messing around. They're stealing internet time from North Rock or Logic or whoever's still around, and who cares about that? But of course, these aren't victimless crimes, even for that, because of course that goes to the bottom line of companies, as if you were stealing out of the till. And we now know that the prevalence of computing and networks in our lives means they were embedded in everything from, Madam President, as you appreciate, sophisticated healthcare systems and life support systems to our cars. I mean, I can't even drive my car if the computer doesn't work. So this is certainly a welcome update. And I note that it has been modeled after the 1990 UK bill of the similar title. So it's good to see that we are learning some lessons there. A couple of other things that I'd like to note, Madam President, and one or two questions is it seems to me also that this bill would address what we would term a denial of service attack. And again, that is when attackers would direct network traffic at a computing system to make it unavailable to its users. So you can imagine you wouldn't be able to access your online banking. You wouldn't be able to access, government payroll tax system and so forth. And I think we could say that 30 years ago, that was not a concept that was probably well understood outside of the highly technical confines of serious network engineers and stuff. So to summarize that up, this is, it's good to see this update. It's important for us. I do have some concerns, Madam President. I think we can certainly agree that some of these crimes are very serious and need very serious consequences. I'm concerned about what I consider a pretty open-ended reference to what I would call national security. To me, that looks like it came out of the UK bill, and they probably have a body of law and practice there that makes it pretty well understood how they should determine what is a national security concern. And to be blunt, I'm not sure that we necessarily have developed that understanding of what that means in Bermuda. And given that the fines could be up to $1 million and life imprisonment for what I consider to be a pretty open-ended term, I guess my question to the government would be how would we define and arbitrate what is a national damage to national security, given I don't think landing here in Bermuda. So that's my first concern, Madam President, and I appreciate the government's elucidation on that. I also note that the bill allows the minister to make regulations, and that's fine. We see that often. But it also allows the minister to make consequential amendments to other legislation by regulations subject to negative resolution. And here I'm a bit lost, Madam President, because I don't understand why, if the government was to identify some issues, they could not just bring legislation in the normal way. So this seems like a bill that allows a minister to make changes to other bills, which I have to admit, Madam President, I'm struggling. So any information the government could provide on that, I would appreciate. And then I guess my last question, which I think the people of Bermuda would really like to know, which I think would put a real point on this bill, which would be how would the cyber attack that occurred in the fall, what clauses of the bill would that be classified under? Because I think that would really make it concrete and help improve everyone's understanding of this bill, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Takuto. Senator Kieran Bell, you've indicated you want to ask a question. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I have two questions. There may be some overlap with the question that Senator Takuto just asked, for which I beg the Senate's forgiveness. The first is my first question concerns Section 5. Section 5 of the Act addresses unauthorized acts with intent to impair or with recklessness as to impairing the operation of the computer. This section is derived largely from the UK Computer Misuse Act, 1990, Section 3. However, there is a material difference between the UK legislation and the legislation being proposed today, and that is the notion of creating a statutory criminal offense for recklessness. Both the UK Act and the Budapest Convention require intentionality around the commission of a crime, a computer misuse crime. And I've wondered in my fundamental question is, why are we creating a statutory offense for recklessness? Why are we diverging from both the Budapest Convention and the UK legislature in this important regard? Obviously, recklessness is a lower level. The second question goes to Section 17, which provides that the minister may make regulations which can amend this principal act. Senator Dakuto has actually already raised this question, but I wanted to actually flag why I'm raising the question. These clauses are known in statutory drafting circles as Henry VIII clauses. They're known as Henry VIII clauses because Henry VIII passed legislation back in his day, which gave him the power to legislate by royal decree bypassing Parliament. They're generally considered undemocratic and bypassing the parliamentary process. They can be used in exceptional circumstances where it's clear that there is some emergent need to have that kind of flexibility. So I would ask the junior minister to provide an indication as to why it is that this exceptional power to legislate by subordinate legislation and act of parliament without going through the parliamentary process, bypassing parliament, is needed in this case. Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Would any other senator care to speak on this bill? No. And we'll wait to hear a response from the minister. Thank you.
Madam President, thank you, senators, for your questions. In response to question number 1 by Senator DeCuto, an example of damage to national security would be a cyber attack on critical infrastructure, such as the hospital or Belco. Disruption to either would be a national security issue. Question number 2, it is standard procedure for ministers to be able to make amendments that impact other legislation. Clause number 6 will cover cyber attacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dill.
Mhm.
There are no further questions on this bill, then Senator Dill.
Just waiting for response to Senator Bell's question.
So for the listening audience, we're waiting for Senator Dill to get a response from on the questions put by a Senator Vice President Karen Bell. So we'll give you a few minutes.
Madam President, may I ask a supplementary question to my?
You certainly may, Senator DeCuto. You have a supplementary question?
Thank
Please
you, Madam
ask it
President.
now.
I'm grateful for the senator for the explanation of a national security examples. Is that specified by law or regulation or written down anywhere that could be relied upon, or is that just going to be decided in the heat of the moment? Thank you.
Senator Bell, with regard to your question, I believe that it is covered by the same answer that we gave to Senator DeCuto, is that it is standard procedure for ministers to be able to make amendments that impact other legislation. and Senator DeCudo, with regard to your supplementary, the answer is covered in the cybercrime legislation that is coming, which lists all the critical national infrastructures such as Belco.
Senator Bell, you have a clarification or question?
Thank you, Madam President. If I may, I'll come back to the answer. I just wanted to double check. Is on the question of recklessness, we're still waiting for the answer on that question. And if I could, I just wanted to elaborate why that's a very important question to have answered. If recklessness becomes the standard under this legislation, employers are going to have to roll out training. They are going to have to get additional insurance, perhaps, that covers this. There are consequences that I'm trying to understand whether they were fully understood and thought through. The reason for that is that the concept of recklessness is a lower legal standard than actually intentionally causing harm. And so one can envisage someone being perhaps knowingly not complying with an employer's computer cyber policies, not intentionally causing any harm, but now having subjected both the employer and themselves to the risk of an offense under this act. If that's what's intended, I think we should be clear so that all members of the public now understand that there is this lower standard that is going to be applied, which could apply to anybody who emails themselves a password in breach of their cyber policy. Obviously, we don't want anybody doing that. Does this apply to somebody who doesn't obey the phishing policy within their place of employment and opens an email which causes their place of employment to be subject to a computer attack? I'm trying to understand what the scope of this is, and the recklessness question is an important one. Turning to the Henry VIII clause that I highlighted, which is section 17, and not to be confused with the section before that, which is section 16, which is the general power to make regulations under this act. It is not, in my understanding, common parliamentary practice at all for Parliament to allow by secondary legislation a primary piece of legislation to be amended, thus bypassing the parliamentary process. And if I'm understanding the junior minister's answer, the statement which is being made is that her understanding, and the answer is that is common practice. Is that the common practice which is being followed today in the House of Parliament? I think that's a very important constitutional question to have answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bell.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Bell. With regard to the recklessness question that you raised, I believe I will confer more with the technical team and the permanent secretary to get some more clarification regarding that and revert back to you with the answers, given the seriousness of what you have shared.
And Madam President, that's fine, but I would suggest that we then postpone voting on the bill until we get the answers to those questions.
Minister Darrell.
Madam President, I ask that we proceed, please. Thank you.
We will proceed.
Okay.
Senator Dill.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Madam President. I move that rule number 26 be suspended in respect of this bill. Sorry. I'll proceed with the second reading of this bill.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Computer Misuse Act 2024 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading?
Madam President,
Senator,
Yes,
there is
yes,
objection to the third
yes,
reading.
Madam
Senator
President.
Tucker.
Yes, Madam President, we need to do the right thing. And if we need to go into committee, I think we need to do that. So yes, I object. Thank you, Madam President.
Senators, there is an objection to the third reading, and we will need to go into committee.
no,
You have a seconder to your motion? Senator Dakota has seconded.
Yes, Madam President, I would second that motion. Thank you.
We will go into committee, and I will ask. No, we need to vote on it. There have been two objections to the third reading, so we would need to take a vote on it. Therefore, but I need to find out about that. So much going to committee. Two objections. Senators, we are entertaining, there's a division because there was two senators objected to the third reading. Therefore, we will now take a vote amongst us as to whether or not we carry it over to the next day of meeting. No, a vote for the third reading. There have been two objections to a third reading. We are now determining amongst all senators whether or not there is a approval of that. Senators, do you understand
Excuse me, Madam President. Sorry, can I just get a clarification? In the standing orders, this is the third reading, so it's no committee. It's just a vote on whether we pass the bill or not. No. It's
There
no
was an
committee.
objection to the third.
Wouldn't be going into committee, but the third reading would stall the bill where it is until we get the answers.
We're taking a vote.
Correct. We're taking a vote.
There was objection. There were two senators who objected to the third reading. Sorry. On that motion, yes, and I've said that we will take a vote on it. We need to determine whether or not. Yes,
Okay.
not everybody agrees to the objection to the third reading.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Tucker. So you have to say aye or no. Aye is for the object to the third reading. No means you want to carry the bill forward. Aye. Okay.
If the ayes win, we're going to carry the bill over.
Okay. Senator Dwayne, excuse me, Senator Dwayne Robinson is absent. Senator DeCuto.
Aye.
Minister Darrell. Senator Hodgson.
Nay.
Senator Lindsey Simmons.
Nay.
Senator Reverend Dr. Dill. Senator Leslie Robinson.
Nay.
Senator White.
Aye.
Senator Bell.
Aye.
And Madam President.
Aye. It's a tie. It's a tie. We have to carry it over.
It means it's lost,
No, the motion is lost, so we carry on.
so we carry on.
The motion was lost, so we carry on. Continue with the third reading because there's a tie.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Computer,
This doesn't happen often enough.
pardon me? Excuse me, Computer Misuse Act 2024 be now read a third time. Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
It has been moved that the bill entitled Computer Misuse Act 2024 do now pass. Is there any objection to that motion? No, no objection. The bill is passed. Oh, Senator DeCuto,
Yes, Madam President, I object
you're
to the,
objecting to it
to the
being
bill
passed?
passing. Thank you.
Was there any other senators who object? Senator, so it'll be 5 and 5 again. We have to vote on the passage of the bill. This doesn't happen often. We have to do it. Senators? We would take a vote now on the passage, the final passage of the bill. And therefore, we will vote again. And if the vote is equal again, it will go through. It will pass. I say this is awkward. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, again, this is the objection to the passage of the Computer Misuse Act 2024. If you object, say aye. If you do not, say no. Okay, starting with Senator Tucker.
Aye.
Senator Dwayne Robinson is absent. Senator DeCuto.
Aye.
Minister Darrell.
This is the final passage of the bill. I know it's been quite.
Senator Hodgson. Senator Lindsey Simmons.
Nay.
Senator Dill. Senator Leslie Robinson.
Nay.
Senator White.
Aye.
Senator Bell.
Aye.
Madam President.
Aye.
And the division loses on a tie, so we will move forward.
So the bill is passed. There's the division. So senators, the bill has been passed. The Computer Misuse Act 2024 has been passed. And we will move on to the next item on our orders of the day. And that is the second reading of the Registration of Births and Deaths Amendment Act 2024.
Yep.
And that's in the name of Senator Lindsey Simmons, the Junior Minister of Home Affairs.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move the bill entitled Registration, Births, and Deaths Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I am pleased to rise today to introduce the bill entitled the Registration, Births, and Deaths Amendment Act 2024. The bill seeks to amend the Registration, Births, and Deaths Act 1949, the 1949 Act, to make provisions for the insurance of a short form death certificate. Madam President, currently, a death certificate can only be issued by the Registry General's Department when the Registrar General is given notice that a death has occurred in Bermuda, pursuant to Sections 11 and 12 of the 1949 Act. However, Madam President, there is currently an unfortunate delay in issuing a death certificate when the notice of death, Form E, has not yet been received by the Registry General's Department, where a medical practitioner or the coroner is reviewing a particular death and are not yet able to determine the cause of death. Madam President, when the cause of death cannot be determined or certified by a medical practitioner or coroner, then the Form E is not received by the Registrar General, as neither the medical practitioner nor the coroner are prepared to sign off on notice of death. This was evident during the COVID-19 pandemic when the Bermuda Hospital Board directed their pathologists not to carry out post-mortem on a body that they tested positive for the presence of the COVID-19 virus. This created an issue where there is a deceased person whose cause of death cannot be determined, as no medical practitioner will sign off stating the cause of death. Madam President, putting aside the emotional distress of losing a loved one, this issue can and does pose major complications in practical and legal aspects of managing the affairs of the deceased. It can potentially lead to delays, disputes, or difficulties in accessing benefits and closing accounts, as well as management of other elements of a person's estate. Madam President, this bill seeks to help address such challenges by permitting a medical practitioner or the coroner to complete a shortened notice of death when the cause of death cannot be determined. This confirmed that an individual is deceased without having to immediately identify the cause of death. Madam President, the bill then empowers the Registrar General, after receipt of the abbreviated notice of death, to issue a short certificate of death. A short certificate of death is an abbreviated death certificate that will only include the fact of death or demographic and not the cause of death. In closing, Madam President, the Registration, Birth, and Deaths Amendment Act 2024 is this government's commitment to improve upon the vital registration services provided by introducing a short certificate of death to simply confirm that a person is deceased and not to delay the insurance of a death certificate when the cause of death cannot immediately be determined. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. And before I open the floor to senators to speak on the bill, I would just like to acknowledge and recognize Mr. Aubrey Penniman, the Registrar General, who's in the chamber with us today. So would any senator care to speak on this bill? Senator Tucker, OBA leader in the Senate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I will say that I am happy to see this amendment, although it would have been nicer to see it a bit sooner because it has absolutely been a long time coming. So thank goodness that we have had some movement on this. I'm glad to see that the government has brought this bill forward, which will greatly, or hopefully, fingers crossed, will help to reduce the suffering that has been experienced by too many of our families on the island who have lost loved ones. And because of lengthy delays, outdated processes, they were unable to obtain death certificates, which are needed to help them to get closure and to address some of the practical things after their loved one has passed away, such as dealing with estate matters, closing bank accounts, obtaining certain survivor benefits, and just generally to assist them in settling the affairs of their loved ones. So while the lengthier standard E will still be need to be completed, as I understand it, um, it will be required at a later date. So at least this new shortened form death certificate form F1 can be obtained within a couple of days. And so therefore, that heartache that families experience over the last several years because of unacceptable delays in getting the death certificates, as I said, should be significantly reduced. So I do have just a couple of general questions. So I did notice that the shortened form requires an address for the deceased. And when I looked at the birth certificate, the short form birth certificate, I noticed that there was no address required. So I'm just wondering why the death certificate has an address requirement. Could have something to do with overseas people or people that pass away on the island or what have you. But if we can get some clarification, that'd be great. The next question also is that the cost of the death certificate, the short form death certificate is $25, but the birth certificate was $20. So although it's not a significant amount at all, I'm just curious as to why there was that difference, why they're not the same price. And one other question, so that would be my third question, would be the bill allows for an initial shortened notification of death to be given in certain cases to alleviate any delays in the registration of a death. So if the junior minister can give an idea of the type of sort of special conditions that would trigger that, then that would be very helpful. So what I'm really asking is if the shortened forms will only be allowed in certain instances, and if so, what specifically would those types of instances be? Is it just where the cause of death is unknown or the autopsy is incomplete, or is it just across the board? So just general questions. Be grateful for the answers. Thank you, Madam President.
Would any other senator care to ask questions on this bill? Senator DeCuto, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. My question would be is how might this affect the collection of data regarding causes of death? Thank you, Madam President.
Senator DeCuto, would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. My question is, does the government have an understanding or estimate of how this might affect the collection of data regarding causes of death, which I thought would perhaps be important for managing health outcomes? Thank you, Madam President.
That's Minister Weeks. Yeah. Senator Tucker? Senator Tucker, they want you to repeat the questions that you,
All the questions?
just so that they can, yes.
Okay, so there was I had a question as it relates to the difference between the shortened form death certificate and birth certificate, because the shortened form death
Oh, okay.
certificate, the only observable difference was that the death certificate required a home address. So I'm just wondering why the home address is required. And the other question outside of the fee was what special conditions, or are there any special conditions um, that will enable someone to get a short formed death certificate? Is it only in an instance where the deceased cause of death is unknown, and then or an autopsy is delayed, where there's expected to be a delay in providing the form E? So in short, what's the criteria for getting a short form death certificate? Thank you.
Yeah, the right time because my watch just stopped. 12:10. Oh, gonna have to do the next bill and the other bill then, if it's 12:10. Mm. Yeah, and then break. They may not agree to that, but anyway, speak to him. Okay, okay, fine. All right. No, no, no. You're important here. Because you know he's gonna say no. He will go right on. Oh God. Yes, because he wants her vote. So he's not going to agree to break for them. Darling, but she's leaving today now. No, but she had to go down to the hospital. She's going to the hospital first. Hmm? Mm. Well, it's taking a long time to understand what he's saying to her.
Thank you, Madam President. To answer Senator Tucker's first question, to provide to prove that the individual died in Bermuda, which is relevant with regard to whether the death occurred in Bermuda or not. So that's why the regular death certificate and address is needed, and they still have to fill out the form um, for the form F. Form F. So that still needs to be, that data will be collected. So yes, and to answer Senator Dakuta's question, data for the cause of death will still be required for accurate stats to be recorded. The answer for the short form fee for the death certificate is $25, which is the standard fee for the death certificate. And there is no criteria. As soon as the notice of death is completed, it must be filed at the Registry General's office. So that answers the 4 questions. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. With that, then you need to, no other
Thank you.
questions, move your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Registration, Births, and Death Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect to this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Registration, Births, and Deaths Amendment Act 2024 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
It has been moved that the bill entitled the Registration, Births, and Deaths Amendment Act 2024 do now pass. Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The bill is passed.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons, and thank you all senators. We will now move on to the last order on our orders of the day, last bill, and that's the second reading of the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024, and that's in the name of Senator Ariana Hudson, the Junior Minister for Health. Senator Hudson.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I do now ask that order number 1 on the orders of the day be carried over to the next sitting of the Senate.
Senators, it has been moved that this order be carried over. The second reading of the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024 be carried over to the next day of meeting. With that said, they will now go on to what am I doing now? Item number 14 on our agenda is motions. There are none. Item number 15, congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Would any senator care to speak on either of these? Senator DeCuto, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. It's been a highly, highly active weekend, and I really am going to be following up on comments already made, but I do feel they deserve emphasis. And, you know, this is a section where we often call names, and it doesn't mean that there's not many, many other things that could be emphasized or discussed. But so I will just call out some of the things that struck me personally, and it's not against all the other vibrant activity that we had this weekend that frankly reflected what I would term Bermuda's rich tapestry. I mean, obviously, for a nation of our size to have 5, maybe 6 now Olympians already confirmed, and three in triathlon. I mean, 3 triathletes, Madam President. I'm a bit of a mathematician, so I like how that goes. So I would just like to congratulate all of them who will be headed to Paris. I am incredibly thrilled by that. I would like to congratulate everybody in the parade. I'd just like to call it. I've heard a lot of very good things about Vasco's Furnash float, and I think that got a lot of positive attention. And the Association of Filipinos, again, I think was a very dynamic performance. And of course, our own Gombe's, Madam President.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I was around for the whole parade, but I understand it was a lengthy cultural experience and went well into the late afternoon, which I think is a great acknowledgement of the importance of this weekend. This year, Madam President, is the 50th anniversary of the National Museum of Bermuda. And I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. There will be a program of some events later in the year. You know, I am the soon to be outgoing chairman of that museum. So I do have an interest there, as you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to highlight next week as also part of the 175th anniversary of the Golden Rule. The museum will be hosting an exhibition with artists from the Azores. And I'm actually quite upset because I'll be off island and we'll miss it. But I urge everybody to go up there and check that out. The museum has been able to put on some fabulous exhibits, and this is a nice intersection of that 170th anniversary. And Madam President, some of you may know that Trevor Monis, the erstwhile parliamentarian and minister and former attorney general, is my cousin, and I'd like to wish him a very special birthday. And I won't call the number, but it was particularly special. So this one is from my cousin Trevor. And I'd just stop there, Madam President. I'm aware of the time limits, so thank you.
Thank you, Senator DeCuto. Would any other senator care to speak on the congratulatory and or obituary speeches? Senator Tucker, OBA leader in the Senate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I will start with condolences. We haven't been here for a little while, so I do want to express condolences to the family of Lynn Stevenson. She is, she was a constituent, and also she was someone that I first met at, because we went to the same church, so I met her at church. And so anybody that, I mean, certainly in the circle that I got to talk to her in, Lynn was always very quiet, somewhat reserved, but very, sort of a solid sort of a personality, right? Not sort of gregarious or anything like that, but certainly, just a very nice, just genuine lady. For those that don't know, she was a long serving employee of the Department of Education, and I believe she retired from there after 33 years. So, I was quite surprised when I learned that she had passed away. So, again, condolences to her family. Also, I'd like to express condolences to the family of Arthur Chesley Trott. Mr. Trott was my art teacher at WorkSec, and his son Arthur, who also passed away some years ago, was one of my classmates. Um, I will say, Mr. Trott, on our school chat, there were comments when Mr. Trott had passed away that about how nice and genuine that he was. I could honestly say that he had more than enough reason to shout at us because we were a bit of a rambunctious group, but he had more than enough reason to, kind of be the Randy Horton in the classroom. And he wasn't. He was just very, very kind, sort of somewhat soft-spoken gentleman who he was highly respected by his students. So I can't even recall one time hearing Mr. Trott raise his voice or getting mad at the students and whatnot, even though he had plenty of reasons to. And Mr. Trott, I can tell you, painful. Well, it was painful. My assessment was painful, probably for him, because I am not creative in any sense in any sense. So having to kind of look and grade some of my stuff must have been really painful. But nevertheless, he will definitely be missed. On a lighter note, I want to express congratulations to Renee Brown, who was one of the recipients of the Child Development Program 2023. Renee works with the Department of Child and Family Services, and she's been there for quite some time. She received their 2023 External Collaboration Award. And if anybody knows Renee, they will know that what I'm about to just read as the criteria for her actually getting it is truly deserving. So the award recognizes the external partner or agency that consistently responds to child development's requests within 5 days, has contributed their expertise to process development at child development, and has consistently engaged in the child development stakeholder meetings over the past 12 months. Renee helped improve child development staff knowledge through cross ministry training and guidance. She's a wealth of information, wealth of knowledge, and always responds when she's called upon. She's a beautiful, beautiful personality. So again, I would just, extend congratulations. Also, congratulations to Glenn Jones on his Emmy nomination. And lastly, I would like to say congratulations to Andre Lamb, and in particular, Nikki Bascom, who is my cousin, on winning their boxing matches last Saturday night. And I will end by saying I know Mrs. Bascom is especially proud. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tucker. Would any other senators? Yes. Minister Darrow, then.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'd like to start my congrats and obits with some sad news, and I'd like to send my condolences to the family of two uh, departed PLP stalwarts. The first one would be Mr. David Hughes. Madam President, Mr. Hughes made it his life's work to stand for those who could not stand for themselves. Mr. Hughes was always vocal in internal party meetings, and you would see him at events. Last time I actually saw him was dancing in the streets at Labor Day. Um, Mr. Hughes was a fixture at Alaska Hall and always was standing on what was right. And secondly, Madam President, I'd like to send condolences to Mr. Glenn Woods. Mr. Glenn Woods, if you ever were at a Progressive Labor Party event, whether it be privately or publicly, he literally would be the one always carrying the flag. If any repairs were needed at the Reginald Burroughs building, Mr. Woods was a long-time serving member of the House and Grounds Committee for the Progressive Labor Party. And, I'd like to send condolences to his family. I have taught his twin daughters. I have been in the Bermuda Regiment with his son and all of the Progressive Labor Party. And I know you will hear more about this in another place on Friday. Send their sincere condolences to the family of Mr. Woods. Also, I'd like to send condolences to a dear friend of mine and her family, Miss Michelle Wolf. Miss Michelle Wolf was laid to rest about a week ago, Madam President. Definitely a life ended too short. Um, but condolences, I did have the opportunity to see her mom and her sister and pass along my condolences to them. And a longtime friend of my father, condolences to his family, Mr. Morris Francis. Um, Mr. Francis also was laid to rest about a week and a half ago. Um, and on a lighter note, I'd like to send some congratulate. Oh, sorry. Also condolences to the family of the young man who unfortunately lost his life over the holiday weekend, Mr. Zaya J. Jones and his family. Condolences to them, all of the students at Cedar Bridge Academy, as he was a recent graduate of that institution. So, Madam President, I'd like to send deepest condolences to that family as well. And on the congrats side of things, I'd like to congratulate Miss, I want to get this right. Don't want to mess this one up. Miss Chiage Rudo, who was crowned as Bermuda's Outstanding Teen at the Outstanding Teen Awards, which were held over the weekend. The Outstanding Teens is something that I was a part of many, many years ago, was put on by Teen Services. Many years ago, I was part of the kind of youth committee that helped with the panel of the Outstanding Teens, and I'm glad to see that it's back after a couple of years in the wilderness. So congratulations to all of the awardees at the awards this past weekend. Also, I'd like to congratulate the stakeholders of St. George's, along led by the Chamber of Commerce, the BTA, the Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport, who unveiled the Bermuda Breeze event, which is an event they've put on in St. George's to help vendors to make a connection with the tourists that visit the old town of St. George's and bring some vibrant activity there. So congratulations to the president of the chamber, Mr. Mariko Thomas, the executive director, Ms. Rivera, and all that were involved in that. The MPs of the area who sit in another place, MP Swan, MP Ming, were very, very instrumental in getting this from conception to actually reality. And from a sporting note, I want to say congratulations to the organizers of a tournament that we saw in Bermuda about a week and a half ago, and that was the Bermuda Smash Invitational. Congratulations to the organizers. It's something different that came to the island. It brought some overseas professionals to the island, and I think that we'll see that tournament expand. And I think cricket enthusiasts were happy to be able to be a part of this. And finally, congratulations to Mr. LG Richardson. And you would, if you are a cricket fan like myself, you would notice that he was recently announced as the new captain of the Somerset League cricket team. And not getting ahead of ourselves, but most people would know that usually the tradition is that once you are named the captain of the league side, it usually means that you will slide in and be captain of a different side that we will celebrate on the 1st and 2nd of August. But that's not my team, so I can't speak on their internal workings. You know, July 20th, Madam President, is the day that I will be looking forward to, and Cleveland take the cup from Bayless Bay. So thank you, Madam President. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Mr. Darrell. And I did recognize Senator Dill. You wanted to speak on the congrats and the bits. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to first of all associate myself with the condolences that were expressed for Mr. David Hughes and Mr. Glenn Woods by Minister Darrell. Certainly, they are two gentlemen that will be deeply missed. They were very passionate about Bermuda and her people, and very passionate in their support of the Progressive Labor Party, and they will be deeply missed. I'd also like to associate myself with the condolences for Mr. Arthur Chesley Trott, who is also an individual, an artist, and I had the opportunity to grow up in the same neighborhood that he lived in, and just the many ways in which he touched our lives. As Senator Tucker shared, there have been so many people that have passed over the past few months, but I'd like to lift up a few that touch my life that I would love for condolences to be sent. In particular, the family of Lori Robinson, who was an educator. I had the opportunity to work with her at Sands Secondary Middle School. But sadly, this family, this week, they will be funeralizing her father, Mr. Calvin Simons. So we express our sincere condolences to that family. Mr. Simons, in particular, he was the individual when I worked at the Ruth Seton James Center for the Performing Arts. He was an individual that we could always depend on. He filmed most of our productions and helped us to create an archive of professional theatrical and artistic works, and he will be deeply missed. Also, another educator, Mrs. Judith Rattery, who actually taught me. Mrs. Rattery, she taught at Sands Secondary School for many years. She served in the economics department, and she was well regarded for her contribution in the education field. The other educator that I'd love to lift is Lucinda Worrell Stowe. Lucinda was a woman that was very passionate and very skilled in dealing with youth at risk. And I had the opportunity to work with her within the school system and see all the many ways in which she touched the lives of others. And she will be deeply missed. Last but not least, I'd like to offer condolences to the family of Mr. Andre Dill. Mr. Andre Dill is the brother to my father-in-law, and he is an individual who gave much to this community, and we offer our sincere condolences to that family, to his children, to his wife, and we pray that they will be comforted during this period. On a much lighter note, I would like to offer congratulations to Miss Brittany Darko, Brittany Pitt Darko, who was named Nurse of the Year. Brittany is the daughter of my first cousin, but one of the things I've had the opportunity to witness Brittany when visiting individuals in the hospital, I've always been extremely impressed by the level of care that she provides, her professionalism. She started out very young as a nurse, moved back here from the UK, and I certainly want to congratulate her on this accomplishment. Um, in the world of theater, I'd like to lift up two Bermudians that are doing great things. Mr. Angelus Hunt, who he has been cast in the musical Tina the Musical in the West End in the UK. So congratulations to Angelus and also to Sedona Sky Duffy, who has been cast as one of the Heathers in the musical The Heathers, which also she debuted last Wednesday, 1 week ago. She debuted in the West End in the UK. So we congratulate our young people on seeing their dreams become reality. And we are really proud of them. And I look forward to an opportunity to be able to witness both of them on stage in the UK in the not too distant future. And last but not least, Madam President, I must take the time to congratulate Minister Owen Darrell and his entire team for the outstanding job that they did with the Bermuda Day celebrations, which, and actually the entire Heritage Month has been outstanding. The level of energy with their theme, culture equals energy. We have seen that exemplified in so many different ways. And so we had a wonderful time from the marathon. Um, that was absolutely wonderful to see it return to its beginning. And we want to celebrate and congratulate and thank Mr. Almore Warren for his persistence and for all of the individuals who played a part in making Court Street come alive in such a very positive way. Last week to Dr. Gina Tucker and the race committee, and congratulations to our champion, Mr. Larry Marshall, and to the young man, Mr. Ryan Outerbridge, who makes his way in this field. So I say thank you, Minister Darrell, for your hard work and for your leadership. And please express our sincere congratulations and thanks to everyone that was a part of our Bermuda Day and Heritage Month. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Dill. And I see Senator Richardson.
Mhm.
Robinson. Senator Leslie Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I too, firstly, would like to associate myself with the condolences for of the loss of both Mr. Hughes and Mr. Woods. Mr. Hughes was certainly someone he loved Bermuda, and you can certainly glean from all of his knowledge and his love for Bermuda, and also for our Progressive Labor Party, and also Mr. Woods, who was just a workhorse. If I had to describe him, he was a workhorse for our party, and again, he's going to be sadly missed. On a lighter note, I too would like to congratulate Minister Darrell and his team for wonderful Heritage Day celebrations. In actual fact, Heritage Month celebrations. It's been a wonderful month, and just to have that actual Heritage Day, Bermuda Day, be full of sunshine. It was just wonderful, and to see all the students in particular who took place in who were taking place in the parade, and in particular those beautiful floats. It was just wonderful to see all the cultures of Bermuda coming together and celebrating on this special day. I would also like to recognize young people, the particularly with the teen awards, and this and them having a spiritual award for the teens. I thought that was just wonderful, um, to have some young people recognized for spiritual leadership. Dominique Braun and Tajir Based, and I want to call those two out. They won the Spiritual Leadership Awards, And I will say, as a member of Bethel AME Church, both of them growing up at Bethel AME Church, Tajir still working at Bethel, and Dominique moving over to St. Philip, I can truly say that they have come up, and you can tell that they do wish and want to live spiritual lives. So we congratulate them. And they are first cousins. And the patriarch of the family, their grandfather Norris Burgess. So just want to extend congratulations to the Burgess family. Also wish to highlight the 35 young people who are going to be part of the youth employment program this year. I think it's just wonderful that we have 35 young people who will be getting employment through that particular program. And also want to congratulate my cousin Carol Clark. She is a stalwart in the community for service, particularly to seniors. She was recognized at Bethel AME Church at their Palm Sunday Symposium. She was recognized. They had a luncheon, and she was recognized for her community work over the last 25 years, and in particular her weekly feeding ministries, as well as her seniors Christmas luncheon, which has become very, very popular, and the first Saturday of December of each year. Also, she was recognized at Grace Church on April 28th for her piano playing. So she is a lady of many talents, and just happy that she is being recognized. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak? Karen Bell, Vice President, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to associate myself, of course, with all of the congratulatories and condolences that are given. On the condolences side, I would like to provide my condolences to the family of Braxton Stowe, who I knew personally, and to his wife, Laverne, son Jamie Braxton Jr., as well as the wider family. He will be missed. On a lighter note, I'd also like to give a congratulations to all high school graduates. They're all graduating right now. My daughter just graduated, so gives me an opportunity to give her a little shout out. But to all of them as they embark on this next adventure, congratulations to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Karen Bell. Would any other senator care to speak? Hearing none, then I would just like to associate myself with the condolences that have been expressed for Arthur Chesley Trott and Lucinda Worrell, whom I agree, Senator Chaka, she was an excellent, really wonderful person. She spent some time at St. Brendan's, but she, in the community, she was absolutely a wonderful person. And she had an excellent funeral as well. It was really, I was pleased to be there to um, visit with the family. Um, Also, I would like to express condolences to the family of Mr. Austin Warner, who was an addictions counselor. And I had worked with him some years ago, and he died recently. And I just want to express condolences, have condolences sent to his family. Um, Obviously, I would want to congratulate Nurse Brittany Darko, who won the Nurse of the Year this year. And a well deserved award for her. And I'd like to associate myself with the congratulations to Minister Darrell and his entire team. You gave your report this morning, and that was absolutely splendid. I enjoyed the day on Front Street, and it was absolutely tremendous. People were saying, I think this is the best one for the, that we've ever had. But anyway, it was absolutely wonderful. And of course, I want to recognize and congratulate the race weekend, those who are on the marathon. I thought that was very well done. And we don't often hear about the young people who get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and have their race. And I would like to congratulate Speaker Lister and his family, because they take responsibility for seeing that goes off well. So with all that, I just associate myself with all that has been said here in the House today in the Senate. With that, we'll move on to adjournment, and it's over to you, Minister Darrell.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I now ask that the Senate adjourn until Wednesday, June 12th.
Would any senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn?
Madam President, I will.
You want to speak on the motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
You have the floor.
Madam President, I am shocked, actually, that I am the only speaker that wishes to speak today on motion to adjourn. Madam President, and I say that because when you open the Daily, or you open certain social media sites, Madam President, it seems that individuals that sit across the aisle in this place have a lot to say. So, Madam President, I came this morning fully prepared to speak about the record of this government and to speak about the positivity that we are doing to help those in the community. And the reason they say that, Madam President, that good work usually speaks for itself. But the problem you have, Madam President, is that individuals that sit on the other side, in this place and another place, Madam President, tend not to use the space that they are given to speak. I learned a long time ago, my mom used to speak, and she still does, French. And they say that Parliament is derived from a French word meaning parlor. In French, I learned a long time ago with Leviat Robinson, Miss Lydia Parentchief at the Berkeley Institute, that parlor means to speak. So that's why I start today, Madam President, and I'm shocked that we see the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader doing a lot of speaking in the Daily, Madam President, but not much speaking in the Senate. We often hear, Madam President, the opposition whine quite a bit about collaboration, communication. And if I have this wrong, Madam President, the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader can point of order me. The senator knows how to contact me, Madam President. So when I am going about doing the work of the people, because Lord knows I am busy, and someone puts an article in front of me of a whining opposition senator, I actually don't know how to respond. So I would have thought that maybe that discussion could have been brought to this place and I could listen respectfully to the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader speak.
Madam President, point of order, please. And my point of order is that the scheduling issue is not the first
I
time
haven't
it has
spoken
been brought
about a
up.
scheduling issue,
So,
Madam
thank
President.
you, Madam President. That's the article that he's referring
I haven't
to.
spoken
Thank you,
about
Madam
a
President.
scheduling issue.
Minister, carry on.
Thank you. The One Bermuda Alliance had the opportunity to speak. No one did. Then, Madam President, I have to take my time with this one. I come up here from time to time, and Some would say that the Progressive Labor Party has a strong mandate. And they may say, well, blessed with the riches that the people support you. But I come up here and I always wonder, well, why is it that I don't hear anything in another place from the opposition? I just don't hear it. So I was in another place a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the tourism investment order. And I was shocked again that all I heard once one individual from the opposition spoke in another place was negativity, talking about developments that had nothing to do with the order, not praising the work that the government is doing to invest in the tourism product, which will then mean investing in jobs for Bermudians, which will mean people can take home money and boost the economy. I heard nothing about that, Madam President. Once again, when given the opportunity to speak, the One Bermuda Alliance remains silent. And the most sickening of all, have to delicately go around this. On a weekend where there was positivity, there was also tragedy. And a certain One Bermuda Alliance senator could not help himself but to jump on the bandwagon of tragedy and put that as the feature of his weekend highlights. Sickening, Madam President. But yet we come to this place, and that same senator is silent. In the congrats and obits, that same senator was silent. I know we are politicians, Madam President. But as I sit here and I tell people all the time, what we do is serve the people. And when you come to this place and you hear nothing to assist the people, but I'm sure there are probably tweets and everything else that are going along. You had a senator not even here today. Supposed to be enjoying a vacation. But decides that he'll speak on social media about the government Senate leader. Sickening, Madam President. So I'm going to finish my remarks by talking about and speaking, using my platform in the Senate to talk about some things that the government is doing that directly impact and help the people. I gave a full ministerial statement this morning about two. One was the assistance of Bermuda Day participants and how that turns over to see the joy and the revelry on the streets. The stuff doesn't happen by chance, Madam President. And I know I heard some accolades in here that were directed to the minister, myself. There's a whole team of people. There is a whole community that sends in suggestions. How about you look at this? Why don't we do this? So yes, Madam President, I'm going to speak on it today in the Senate. I can pull up a litany of messages and I'm going to send them to the senator from the One Bermuda Alliance and see if they show up on his Instagram feed of all of the parents, Madam President, that could not afford to go to summer day camps a year ago because the spaces were small. The spaces sold out too fast. There may not have been options available for what their students wanted to do. And in another place that I sit on Tuesdays, it was a directive that next year, Mr. Minister, this cannot happen. We need to put the focus of the community first. So in February, when we talk about, or March, when we sit here, and the One Bermuda Alliance likes to get up and just ask gotcha questions all the time, and we meticulously lay out the budget allotment for this government and how it will benefit the people, what you saw 2 weeks ago, Madam President, is the fruits of that labor, where we had private sector camps come on board with government camps and double the placements that we were able to give to young people in this community. Not a word said about it by the One Bermuda Alliance. Not one. The role of politicians is to serve, and one of the roles of this place is to speak. So while we can sit up here and we can dance around and do political games to get things to go in their favor, I will continue with my colleagues of the Progressive Labor Party to serve the people of this country who need it most. Over about $250,000 supporting young people in this community. And as some senators like to point out, there were not young people from just one side of town or one community club. We span the entire gamut of national sports governing bodies in this country. Shocking. Senator that sits on the other side said not a word about it. We come to speak, Madam President. We see events like the Bermuda Smash Invitational that was supported by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport. We saw other jurisdictions look at what we were doing and say, this is amazing. Look what Bermuda's doing. And they came in support of an event that I expect to go global, and an event that I expect to help the community. So, Madam President, while you would have seen a lot of scurrying around earlier, maybe they have somewhere to go. Maybe they have somewhere to be. But as for the work that is needed for the people of this country, you only have to look as far as the work that Senator Lindsey Simmons is doing and has done. On a day after the election, did not